Hello everybody and welcome back to Design Disquisitions, where I discuss all things related to intelligent design, evolution, biology and science. In the foreword to The Design of Life by William Dembski and Jonathan Wells, William S. Harris writes that the scientific community continues to wrestle with the deep and fundamental questions. Where did the universe come from? How did life originate? How did coded language come to form the basis of life? How could multicellular life have originated from unicellular life? What is the origin of complex molecular machines that are inside every cell and that are necessary for life? Sometimes we can be so busy arguing for our favoured answers to these questions that we forget why we're so intellectually and emotionally invested in this area in the first place. On the other hand, it's lamentably the case that many people don't even stop to consider these questions. Many respond with apathy and say they don't know what the answers are and they don't care. Here I want to pause, take a step back, and consider whether this issue matters at all. Personally, I've always thought that it does matter, and here are a few reasons why. As rational creatures, we humans have wondered about our origins for millennia. Even now we still wonder. Critics of intelligent design would have you believe that this is just a recent controversy initiated by anti-scientific Christian fundamentalists in the US in order to surreptitiously inject creationism into schools. This narrative, however, is completely off the mark, and it also neglects the crucial point that this is a historically ancient dispute. In his paper, Evolution versus Intelligent Design in Classical Antiquity, Anthony Long points out that much that divides the two sides in modern America was already a major source of debate in classical antiquity, pitting theist Platonists and Stoics against evolutionist Epicureans. He further argues that the Epicureans are antiquity's principal evolutionists and opponents of intelligent design. This historical parallel isn't perfect though, due to the fact that there are many religious people who also accept evolution and Darwinism and who wouldn't want to ally themselves with Epicurean materialism. But it is true to say that design in nature has been debated at least since the time of the ancient Greeks. As for those who argued for design around this period, in his survey of the history of arguments over design, Stephen Meyer writes that design arguments based on observations of the natural world were made by Greek and Roman philosophers such as Plato and Cicero, and by Jewish philosophers such as Maimonides and Christian thinkers such as Thomas Aquinas. Moving further on, it continued to be an issue for the founding fathers of science, such as Kepler and Newton. Philosophers and theologians also eagerly entered the fray. For Immanuel Kant, David Hume, Thomas Reid and William Paley, it was an issue that dominated much of their work. And here we are, still asking similar questions. Given its turbulent past and relevance today, this debate isn't going to disappear anytime soon. In fact, discussion around this issue has never been more vibrant and widespread, and it's bound to continue on this trajectory. When we enter into this discussion, we aren't merely arguing over a petty and parochial concern. We're engaging in a historically important and increasingly relevant dialogue, one that has occupied the minds of some of the greatest intellects. When asked what his approach was, the former editor of New Scientist magazine, Alan Anderson, asserted, "What's happening in science is the most interesting thing in the world." And I'll let you fill in the rest of the sentence. Of course, I wouldn't put it in such strong terms, but essentially I think everyone should have a healthy appreciation for science, regardless of one's worldview. I realise that in one sense this is a highly subjective claim, since people aren't always interested in the same thing. But I think there is more to this point than mere interest. If you're a religious person, you should be in awe of God's creative genius and want to understand it in some measure. I use the word should very deliberately because theologically I think we all have a moral and intellectual obligation to at least reflect deeply upon these matters. If you're not a religious person, you may think that perhaps it's not as much of an objective intellectual obligation, but rather more an expression of human rationality and curiosity. Either way, whatever worldview we happen to hold, science infiltrates into most areas of our lives. As Jennifer Wiseman explains, agriculture, entertainment, energy production, communications, and healthcare are just a few of the ways science and technology shape life for people around the globe and affect all other life on the planet as well. So when it comes to studying the natural world, science is the most effective set of tools we have, and it's a truly wonderful human activity. In Finding Darwin's God, Ken Miller points out that the origins debate remains a point of concern and controversy because it deals with the greatest of all mysteries, our own origins and our place in human nature. The good news is that all we have to do to begin a journey of self-understanding and an understanding of our fellow animals is to start by looking under our very own noses. The answer is potentially right here in front of us. David Belinsky highlights the importance of this point when he notes that there's a wide appreciation of the fact that if biologists are wrong about Darwin, they are wrong about life. Biology reveals to us a world of stupefyingly complex living systems. Let's not forget that we are among these perplexing living systems. The discussion over intelligent design is vitally important because it's a quest to understand the secret of life, and thus ourselves. At the end of the day, does it matter either way? Well, I think it does, and the reason is that the answers to these questions have far-reaching implications. If the truth behind nature is that design is real, it would have many implications for science education, for example. It would affect what we teach in the classroom and how we would structure university education. Some would argue that it would drastically change the way we do science and how we define science itself. Even if this is the case, surely there are more pressing issues we should be devoting our energies to, like climate change and social equality. Indeed, we should be talking about these issues, however, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be talking about matters concerning origins either. We can and should think deeply about both. Vijay Rana states that the concern about humanity's social ills and our planet's environmental catastrophe and our motivation to act are deeply connected to what we think about human origins. Our origins outlook also colours our views on religion and ethics, and it no doubt affects several other areas as well. On a more fundamental level, one's views on this subject can affect one's worldview and vice versa. Stephen Meyer notes that his book, Signature in the Cell, poses a serious challenge to the materialistic worldview that has long dominated Western science and much of Western culture. So, if you believe that life is a product of design, you will see humans and animals in a much different light. Likewise, if you think that life is purely the result of chance and necessity, that will make you see things differently as well. Our beliefs about the nature of nature have huge consequences. Having said all of this, it's also important for us to not let our philosophical and ethical beliefs determine our approach to science and to, just use it to confirm our own biases. Modern science is a more interdisciplinary endeavour than it ever has been. The bountiful fruit that is yielded has made us realise that nature is far richer and multifaceted than we could have ever imagined. So now we need all the conceptual and practical tools that we can muster. And today there's a dazzling multitude of fields and subfields within science, with many areas overlapping and cross-fertilising. Modern biology in particular takes an integrative approach towards the study of the natural world due to its increasing interdisciplinary nature, which is a byproduct of the complexity that we're discovering in nature. The debate about the nature of biological life is fascinating, partly because it touches on so many areas. including molecular biology, biochemistry, genetics, zoology, paleontology, information theory, computer science, and philosophy. The list goes on. So this is a very inclusive problem, and so people from a multitude of disciplines can weigh in when it's appropriate to do so. So for me, the origins dispute has great significance and importance, and I hope some of the reasons that I've outlined in this video might encourage you to reconsider this topic and find out more for yourself. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that this is merely a sectarian theological argument over creationism. To be perfectly honest, I often find creation-evolution disputes to be quite banal, repetitive, and irritating. Worst of all, too often such discussions rapidly descend into heated ideological slanging matches. As a result, casual observers withdraw and decide to wash their hands of the issue. Understandably, onlookers might conclude that it's not worth getting involved in, given its often unproductive and unfriendly nature. Speaking as a Christian, many people in my generation see it as a stale and embarrassing sideshow that's primarily the interest of close-minded fundamentalists, eagerly wishing to defend their particular interpretation of the creation accounts in Genesis. But in my view, there's another way of looking at these perennial questions. Debates about creationism and evolution often get hopelessly muddled with the issue of intelligent design, and I think sometimes this has been the fault of people on both sides of the discussion. Partly due to a failure to make basic distinctions and less than savoury motives, let's say. Arguments about creationism are primarily theological disputes, and sadly many seem to use science merely as a tool to achieve a theological or atheological end. However, as I've tried to argue, there's much more to this topic than the often stale and unedifying creation-evolution disputes. This is a rich and multifaceted dialogue with many important implications. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that of interest and got you thinking a little bit. If you're already into this area or you're just becoming interested, then feel free to subscribe to the channel, where I'll be posting more videos in future, and I'll be going into a lot more detail on some of the specific areas I mentioned. And feel free to give it a like, share, and comment what you thought of the points made in this video. But thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.